What's up, guys? Welcome back. Last week we finished up, for the most part, frost seeding our switchgrass, and today we are out here spraying our pre-emergent, our herbicide. So if you didn't see the last video on kind of my process for frost seeding, actually putting the seed down, go ahead and check that out. I will link it above here. But like I said, today, the pre-emergent Simizine, I'll try and grab a quick picture of it later. Most of you guys have already heard of it, probably many times over, watched one of Jeff's or someone else's video. Not really too much to talk about. Simizine, being a pre-emergent, is before the weeds come up. So again, if you don't know already, for things that are already growing, already above the ground, you're not going to have to worry about really killing those. It's just going to be kind of putting that barrier within the soil and preventing a lot of the weeds from coming up. And for things like switchgrass, which are very weed intolerant, it's great, and it's a good, gets us off in the right direction so that maybe we can get one spraying of glyphosate and 2,4-D in before it does start to germinate as the weather warms up. So over here, I want to show you real quick. I am using this Fimco. It's a 25-gallon sprayer. You can get it at Tractor Supply and a couple of places online as well. 25-gallon. It does have this this boom setup, if you will. My Honda ATV isn't super great with the rack. It's kind of cattywampus, so not a huge fan of that, but we make it work. Get some straps on there, and then there are 3 nozzles. It's supposed to spray 30 feet or so. I don't think it's quite there, maybe 20 or whatever, but it gets the job done, and it's a heck of a lot better than the 4-gallon backpack sprayer that I was using beforehand. So I don't really want to run into too many issues today. Before things got too wet, it's warming up. It started at like 25 degrees this morning, and later on it's going to be like 56, I think. So I wanted to get here early where things were still a little frozen, because I had a couple of wet areas when I finished up my frost seeding, and I wanted to get it kind of frozen so I could drive through the 4-wheeler, not make too much of a mess, and get that get that Simizine down. So hopefully some of the moisture, might take a little bit of it away, but I'm glad to be getting out here. If you haven't seen the implementing a whitetail habitat solution plan, a professional plan, it's kind of the first video of the year. I will also link that one above, but it talks about all the switchgrass, 14 or so acres that we are putting down. And that's exactly what we're going over with the pre-emergent. We're not going over any of the food plots or food. I don't know if you can see here, but our food plot trail is going to kind of connect this big opening behind me, and it's going to go forward, and it's going to kind of meander and make its way to that opening over there. So long story short, I don't really know why you don't put it on food very much. It could just be, more of a residual effect. It might just affect things worse, I'm not sure. But we will be hitting, of course, the food with glyphosate and 2,4-D. And then we are going to be using the cover crop, the exact same thing that Jeff does. So I'll be able to bring that to you, show you exactly my experience. We have the buckwheat already, keeping it in a cool place in the basement that is dry, and early June we'll plant that. But anyway, back to the Fimco sprayer real quick. I get about 2.5 to 3 or so acres with this 25-gallon tank. I do 2 quarts because I have sandier soil, so I don't need quite as much of the Simizine, but I'm using about 7.5 gallons total for this project. And so I'm putting 5 to 6 quarts of Simizine in the sprayer. And like I said, 2.5 to 3 acres is what I get. Another thing I wanted to add really quick is that when I'm getting 2.5 or so to 3 acres, I am going about 5 to 6 miles an hour on the ATV. Thought you guys might be interested in that, being it's quite important in the calculation. So the other thing is, when you see or when you saw the 25-gallon sprayer on the ATV, and I showed you the rack, wasn't too great. If your land is very bumpy, you're going into some more remote areas, it's not nice and flat, I would either A, figure out a new rack system that's pretty flat that you can strap down a little better, or B, bring a lot of straps and figure it out, because I have yet to figure out something where this thing doesn't move at all. It's obviously heavy. Areas like this are pretty flat, but I have some others that have some ruts and things like that where it bounces all over the place, or I'm riding half the time with my arm back here, and obviously my arm's not going to just hold this filled sprayer up. It's quite heavy when it's moving around and jostling, so bear that in mind. I didn't really calibrate very much. Last year I just put way too much on with the backpack sprayer. Jeff's kind of joked about that in one of his videos, which was pretty funny. But you can use water, you know, just see how much you get done with one full thing of water. I'm assuming if you have the same sprayer, it's going to be very similar to me. But as far as the mix to water, I think there's some leeway there. So whether it's 6 quarts or 8 quarts or 4 quarts, whatever, I think you're pretty good. It's just how much area you know, you're going to cover and how much you need. So if it's 2.5, then 5 quarts kind of just makes sense. Okay. So other than that, I don't really use, this particular model does have the kind of wand sprayer. I don't really use it. If I had some select areas, which I actually do, the pockets, which is funny, I haven't really thought about it too much, but the small pockets that I have over this way, I could get out the boom sprayer. I just figure, you know, I can pop the 4-wheeler into reverse, whatever, and hit it with one kind of pass with the boom sprayer. So not sure if I'll really be using that. This morning when things were cold, that's the reason I brought that up. When things were cold, I actually had some trouble with a nozzle or two. I would fill up, I would spray and maybe stop it and turn around, and literally in a short amount of time, some of the nozzles here would actually like freeze up a little bit, and I'd really have to kind of take it apart. I put a glove on, right, because we don't want to really get our hands or anything on the herbicide. So. But try and free that loose, put it back on, still wouldn't work, play with it, and as things did start to warm up, I didn't really have an issue. So as far as the actual running of the machine, you have your pump here. Things have kind of gotten better, so when you guys are looking at reviews and stuff, try and differentiate some of the different models and things of that nature. This high flow, it's the 4.5 GPM, gallons per minute pump. It kind of runs at, you know, 20 to 60 PSI. Be mindful, sometimes it's not going to stay at 60 PSI when you're running usually. I was always very finicky. I called a couple times. It seems like the pressure would fluctuate. I honestly think as long as the pump is working and you're getting a decent spray, it's really not going to get too much better. You're just going to have to do with what you can. But I did eventually, I think, send in for a new pump at one point last year when it just wasn't coming out at all. I went through, I kind of played with a lot of these little tightening, I forget what they're called, but these little tightening clamps, if you will. Other than that, everything works. It just, you know, you have to finick with it a little bit. And this hose, there's a little filter. I don't know if you can see that. There's a little filter in there. You can unscrew and just clean it if any debris gets into the tank. But I'm not very mechanically savvy, especially when it comes to things like plumbing and whatnot. And I do fine with it. So I think you guys would as well. Really, other than that, not too much to talk about. Safety gear, guys. I always have my mask, you know, for fumes and things like that, especially if there's a little bit of wind. Luckily today there's pretty much no wind, but so a mask is great, especially for pouring, and you know, some gloves if you think you might splash a little bit, and then some safety glass I have in my pocket here. Wear those, especially if you might get some spray back. Actually, when I was adjusting those nozzles, it did spray and actually scare me a little, and I wasn't wearing my glasses, so it just kind of goes to show you. But that is about it when it comes to the pre-emergent. Let me know if you guys have questions below. Again, only going to be spraying this on the switchgrass areas. Now also, second year switchgrass, it is okay to go through, put some Simizine on it. Just make sure you're not spraying any glyphosate or anything like that on second year switchgrass. So I had a little patch, you know, I hit and things like that. But other than that, this is going to all be new, and I can't wait to show you guys, because in a couple, you know, at the end of the year or late summer and in next year, there's just going to be so much growth. Look at this field, and I'm going to make sure that I show you guys kind of the difference, you know, going forward. Super excited. So I'll see you next time. If you guys like these videos, please think about hitting that like button and subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.